Hello, Jeet.
Super to be here.
How are you?
Not bad.
We have heard a lot of complaining that superhero movies are sucking all the oxygen away from serious movies for grown-ups. Why aren't you joining the chorus, warning us that the end is nigh for good movies?
Well, first of all, if you look at the last year, the actual number of good movies, if you don't like superheroes, is a lot. Like there was Birdman, there was Selma, there was Boyhood. It's a pretty good year for movies. So I don't think that the existence of a large number of superhero movies, as well as like a cinema that's not superheroes, is mutually exclusive. You can kind of have both.
There are, though, you have to admit, a ton of superhero movies coming out. Why do you think these kinds of stories have such a big appeal?
Yeah, well, the superhero genre started in the late 1930s, and I think it's really has a political basis. Like, if you remember, in the 1930s, there was the Great Depression, and America was isolationist, and then it burst into the world stage through World War II. And superheroes are always allegories of political empowerment. Superman is America. He is Clark Kent, the
Oh, yeah.
weakling, and then he takes off his jacket and he's Superman. Captain America is a weak guy. He takes a serum given to him by a scientist, just as like America got the atomic bomb, and he's he's
Oh,
super powerful. So I think superheroes and the real wave of superhero movies, although they've existed for 40, 50 years, but the real wave has been the last 10 or 15 years, and I think it's related to 9/11. There's a if you most of these superhero movies have villains who are kind of terrorist-y. They're kind of like a little bit Bin Laden like, and there's a sense of which
true.
that there's these movies give a sense of political empowerment, that they have heroes who can solve problems at a time when many people feel that we have insolvable problems, that we have festering problems that can't be dealt with. Um,
That is the deepest analysis of superhero movies I have ever heard. So clearly, you're known as a scholar of comic books, but are you also a fan of superhero movies?
Well, that's the paradox, because I personally don't like them, and I actually end up going to see a lot of these movies because I like teach on comic books and I've edited books about comic books. So I feel it's my scholarly duty to see Captain America 2, which I ended up not liking terribly much. And it's a weird thing because I like a lot of North American kids, especially boys. I grew up on superheroes. I was reading Daredevil and the X-Men when I was young, and by the time I was 13 or 14, I sort of felt like I outgrew them. And if I read when I read comics, it was things like Spiegelman's Mouse or Love and Rockets by Jaime Hernandez. I didn't. I felt like I outgrew superheroes, and then but suddenly. Even as I was getting older, the culture was not. The culture and all the things that I had known as a kid are suddenly dominating the cinemaplex, which is a weird feeling. It's like as if you had gone to school with Napoleon and then suddenly he's taking over the world.
That's an interesting analogy. So, what caused you to study a topic that you're not really into anymore?
Well, I comics are much broader than superheroes. I mean, there's like a vast array
Fair
of
enough.
comics. Well, and I'm more interested in something like Peanuts or Little Orphan Annie or Love and Rockets than I am in superheroes. So, but I feel like I've been. It's like a marriage you've kind of gotten into that you can't quite escape from.
Right. And you've talked about the cultural impact, but how are these superhero movies that we're seeing now, this current crop, how are they different from what we've seen in the past?
Well, I think the big change that happened was the special effects. If you go back to, say, the Superman TV show of the 50s or the Batman TV show of the 60s, they kind of look very awkward and silly because they didn't have the way of taking these fantastic images and putting them on the screen. So, what happened, and one reason why superhero movies have taken off, is that the special effects have caught up with the art. And then suddenly, as the superheroes have existed for 70 years, there's 70 years of storytelling, 70 years of narrative arc for Hollywood to pillage. So it's like a perfect confluence
Of
of the
course.
existing narratives with the special effects.
So you talked about, post 9/11 and the impact that had. Do you think that this insurgence of superhero movies is saying anything else about what's happening culturally right now?
Yeah, I think there's a kind of reactionary gender politics to a lot of this stuff.
Oh, tell me more about
And
that.
well, I mean, if you go back actually because it is like a boys genre, and now Disney has bought up Marvel Comics. So Disney has two kingdoms. They have the princess movies for girls, and they have the superhero movies for boys. And they kind of reinforce this gender difference. Now, I should say that right from the beginning of the superhero genre, there were like, female superheroes, heroines like Wonder Woman, who was, the creator of Wonder Woman, William Marston. He was in a menage a trois with two very committed feminists, one of whom was Margaret Sanger's niece. And then
Wow.
he put a lot of feminist, first wave feminist messages in there about, like how women should dominate the world and are the have a message of like love and peace to spread if they can only beat up the men. So I think that so superheroes don't necessarily have to be gender reactionary, but I think that the way the genre has evolved, it has become that way. And I sort of fear that part of the popularity of the superhero genre is that it's such a boy genre. And unfortunately, the way gender dynamics works, like straight women who are dating guys will go to see a superhero movie, whereas a guy won't go see a chick flick.
Right. Jeet, I will never ever see superhero movies the same way again after talking to you. Thank you so much for coming in.
It was great to be here.